Hey everyone, my name is Hawk, and welcome to my very first video where I will be talking about the World's 2019 quarterfinals for League of Legends, power ranking all 8 teams, and then breaking down the quarterfinal matchups as they are. Now, being that this is my very first video, I'm going to first start with an introduction of myself and the channel and talk about my goals. If you would like to skip the introduction part of the video, I will timestamp all 8 teams individually in the description as well as the 4 quarterfinal matchups. If you would like to skip to a particular part, watch your favorite team, whatever it may be, timestamps will be in the description. With that being said, introduction to myself. As I said, my name is Hawk. I'm a college student, aspiring analyst or caster or writer, whatever, something esports with the growing scene right now. And basically, this is just a personal project of mine to get my analysis and my voice out there and let people hear what I have to say. With that being said, since I am a college student, I have a lot of things going on. I cannot guarantee that I will have a regular upload schedule. I will do my very best to upload as much as I can because I do think that a viewership base deserves that. And I will do my best to cover the end of Worlds 2019 going through November. Hopefully upload a few videos in the off season about analysis of rosters as they always shuffle in the offseason, and then really start off with the spring split strong, hopefully to get into a regular schedule if I can. Also, since it is a hobby, don't expect incredible visual quality from my videos, especially starting out. I am not an editor by any means. I don't have an editor. I do not have a lot of time on my hands to edit, so for this video I put together this slideshow just in like an hour or two, just to give the viewer something to look at, and that's probably what most of them will be. Hopefully it is not unpleasant to look at, but do not expect top-notch visuals. But basically what I hope the viewer will get out of this channel, and the reason why I hope people will want to watch, is because I will have good things to say, and they will be interesting, or I will have conflicting viewpoints with solid analysis to back it up. Whether or not that is true, that is obviously up to the viewer to decide, but I would just like to get my analysis out there, and I hope that it is interesting enough to engage a viewer. So that is basically my goal for the channel. I should have face cam for up-and-coming videos. I did not get it set up for this one, but it will be coming soon. With that being said, let's jump into my power rankings, starting at number 8, which I'm sure everyone can assume is, of course, Splyce. Now, the European third seed, by no means are they bad. Splyce honestly has played about to expectations this tournament. I think that they have played to their strengths. They've team fought very well. Splyce has had very good early games, which may have gone underlooked or overlooked in the LEC when they're up against G2 and Fnatic, who have unbelievable early games. But Splyce has had very strong early games, particularly against FunPlus Phoenix in all 3 of the games that they played against FunPlus. They had strong early games. They looked good out the gate. As everyone already knows about Splyce, Splyce is incredibly good at team fighting. Kabe is an amazing marksman. He is easily the 3rd best AD carry in Europe. It's hard to beat Perks and Reckless, but Kabe is always consistently good. He always puts out DPS in team fights, and he's an incredible asset for Splyce. Now, with that being said, Kabe is incredible. But when we look at the other members of Splyce, I struggle to see world-class players, and that is where I think Splyce falls short. Vizicsacsi simultaneously is an absolutely amazing top laner, top 3 top laner in Europe, and also a complete inter. Vizicsacsi is the epitome of a double-edged sword, having an insane amount of isolated deaths in Europe, and I'm sure continuing into the World Championship. I do not have the stats in front of me, but I'm sure Vizicsacsi has tons and tons of deaths in this championship. With that being said, I would say Vizicsacsi has had an okay tournament. He has not been a weakness to Splyce, but Chachi, you never really know what you're going to get. He can either go 0-7 or 7-1. He had that one monster Cho'Gath game for Splyce in the game where they beat FunPlux, which I think if Chachi can play like that, where he survives his lane matchups and gets into team fighting positions, he's an incredible asset for Splyce. Now, where I am afraid for Splyce is Norscarin. Norscarin is, simply put, not a world-class support. He overextends frequently, he dies a lot, and I don't think he sets up plays as well for Splyce as other supports. Looking across at his other LEC representatives in Hylissang and Mickey X, both Hylissang and Mickey X have something in common. Hylissang in particular, where it's, Hilly's sick or Hilly's shit. And he either sets up incredible plays for Fnatic or ends the entire game, or does both in the same game. He's always just a coin flip when he plays. Mickey X also the same to some extent. I think Norscarin does that same sort of thing where Norscarin will completely int for you some games or set up a lot of plays for you some games, but unfortunately, I don't think Norscarin makes as many incredible plays as Hylissang and Mickey X do, and he will get caught out very, very frequently and give up a lot of unneeded deaths. Now looking at Humanoid, I think Humanoid has actually overperformed this tournament. Humanoid had a pretty fantastic group stage and a very solid play-in stage. He's looked very good. And I do not know if Humanoid will be able to stack up against other mid laners moving forward in the tournament, however. I think he's played very well. He had a good Rise game. He looks good on control mages, which are very meta right now. So I think Humanoid can be very comfortable at where he's at. And if he continues to perform to this level, he will be a strength to Splyce. But with that being said, I am not sure if Humanoid will be able to continue this level of play that he's had, especially as he starts going up against much better mid laners. Doinb is notorious for not being a particularly strong laner. So looking across the table at, say, Faker, it'll be interesting to see where Humanoid ends up. So that's basically how it shakes out. Splyce has had solid early games, and they're a solid team fighting team. But I'm not sure if, other than Kabe, Splyce has the individual players to stand out in the quarterfinals, especially against the team of a caliber of SKT. And that's where I'm concerned. Also, Splyce has had some incredibly weak mid-games in this tournament, particularly exposed by FunPlus Phoenix, who are a phenomenal mid-game team, and both of their losses to FunPlus, Splyce made very, very questionable mid-game decisions. And in the second game against FunPlus, when they ended up winning, they still wanted to throw the game to FunPlus Phoenix. So I'm concerned for Splyce in the mid-game if they may get exploited by SKT. Now, SKT's mid-game I will cover later when I get to SKT. But just looking at Splyce right now, Splyce isolated by themselves, I think they are a good team, but stacked up with all of the 7 other teams in this quarterfinal, I think Splyce is wholly outclassed, and they can be happy with getting this far. So now moving on to number 7. We're going to have FunPlus Phoenix, and this may come as a surprise. It should be noted that I had Splyce power ranked coming into the group stage at number 12, just to give an idea there. FunPlus Phoenix, I had power ranked at number 4, and a lot of analysts had power ranked in their top 3. If not in the top 3, also at number 4. But FunPlus is number 7, and it's easy to say that FunPlus just had a really bad group stage, and they're going to pick it up, and they're going to just destroy everyone coming into this quarterfinals. But I'm not convinced. So the supposed strength of FunPlus Phoenix is Doinb gets on a roaming champion. He may not be the strongest laner, but he will get on a roaming champion, roam around. Doinb, Crisp in the support, will roam around and just destroy everyone in the mid game. FunPlus won an unprecedented number of games in the LPL, just wrecking through mid games with Doinb, Crisp, LWX would look good, Gimgoon would look good, Tiam would look good. They notoriously blasted RNG in the final of the LPL Summer. Came in as a hot favorite, right? But then they have been incredibly disappointing. They dropped 2 games in the group stage, 1 to Splyce and 1 to J-Team, which is not a good look for the first seed from China. And now, coming to the quarterfinal, they're power ranked at number 7 for me, and many analysts have them low down as well. So I want to talk about why I do not think FunPlus is actually good. I think Doinb is very, very good when he is unlocked. He's able to play crazy things like Galio, and he's got his Champion Ocean. He played Nautilus. He can get on these insane champions that can really affect the map and affect his team, and it's just snowball leads. And that's something Doinb is very good at, because he doesn't necessarily give himself an individual lead. But I don't think FPX has done that very well this tournament, and particularly their other lanes with Gimgoon and Top and LWX and Crisp have not shown up this tournament. I think Gimgoon has died a lot, and Gimgoon has been mediocre at best as far as top laner goes in this tournament. He got smashed by Vizicachi in the Cho'Gath game. Now, of course, that was with help from Xerxes and them winning that 2v2 against Tian and Gimgoon. But I think Gimgoon has not played particularly well in this tournament. LWX had that one game where he just inted incredibly hard on Kai'Sa that everyone talks about. And even not on that Kai'Sa game, LWX have been less than impressive. Tian has not exactly had the ability to affect the map to what I think he wants to. And maybe this can just be chalked up to a couple bad days. But I think after seeing 6 games from FunPlus, none of them were convincing enough for me to be like, oh, FunPlus is looking to snap out of their funk. I think FunPlus is still struggling. Now, I want to talk about the LPL as a whole when I talk about FunPlus. And just to make myself clear, I do not watch as much LPL as I do the other regions. I watch mostly NA and EU about the same amount, and then pretty much all the games in those leagues, right? And then I watch some LCK, big games in LCK, and then really not that much LPL. But what I do know is FunPlus is an insane mid-game team, and they won 85% of their games in the LPL regular season. They were a monster team in the LPL. So everyone, of course, the China being the reigning world champion region, had them ranked very, very highly coming into the tournament, including me. But when we look across at the LPL, RNG did not make it out of groups. Invictus had a decent group stage, being the reigning world champions and also having struggled in summer. They came in and they played somewhat well, only losing twice to Damwon. But RNG did not make it out of groups. FunPlus squeaked out of groups. I am wondering if the LPL is not as strong of a region this year as everyone made them out to be. And instead, that IG is actually just a monster. Look at it this way. World Championship last year, Group of Death is supposedly supposed to be Gen G, RNG, Cloud9, and Vitality. Cloud9 and Vitality both take games off of RNG. Cloud9 makes it out of groups. Gen G has a historic failure at Worlds, right? EDG, RNG, and IG, all 3 Chinese representatives, all make it out of groups. EDG gets smashed in quarterfinals by Fnatic 3-1. RNG gets beaten by G2. And then IG barely makes it past KT. Of course, IG goes on to win the World Championship in dominant fashion, 3-0ing G2 and Fnatic and ripping the hearts out of European fans. But when I look at LPL, RNG and EDG had particularly disappointing tournaments as far as they go. EDG maybe can be happy. They were the 3rd seed. And Fnatic was heavily favored in that quarterfinal matchup. But RNG got shocked by G2. Now, flash my next team there. My bad. But now coming into this year, IG has a very, very strong group stage showing at Midseason Invitational, then gets shocked by Team Liquid 3-1 in that semifinal. Now looking at this year, FunPlus massacres their way through LPL Summer, destroys RNG, and then RNG, notoriously weak mid-game team. RNG always plays through Uzi, right? They play through bot lane, they play for late-game team fights. They were exploited by Fnatic, particularly in Week 2, for their weak mid-games, and Fnatic was able to win through the mid-game, dominating the bot lane with Broxa, Hylissang on Pyke in that tiebreaker match. I'm wondering if the LPL is not as strong as people are making them out to be, and that FunPlus actually isn't the titan that they're made out to be. Because as RNG, I've already stated, is a very weak mid-game team, FunPlus is a very strong mid-game team, and LPL is notorious for having some fiestas of games. So FunPlus just destroys RNG in the mid-game when RNG can't get to late game with Uzi, win the LPL. Everyone thinks they're strong, but maybe it's the weakness of RNG and the LPL as a whole that makes FunPlus Phoenix look better than they are. I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying it's a possibility. So I think for FPX to win this week, they need all 3 of their lanes to show up individually. LWX cannot int, Gimgoon cannot int, Doinb needs to get out on the map with Crisp and with Tian and make plays. But I think if FunPlus cannot have a heavily influential mid game, they are not a strong team, and it showed in group stage. Moving on to the number 6 team that I have is Invictus, and I already showed it, of course, but the reigning world champion Invictus, they're number 6 with number 1 or 2 upsides. Basically, IG has absolutely insane solo lanes, and everyone knows that. The Shy has been one of the best top laners at the tournament, maybe the best. Rookie has been one of the best mid laners at the tournament. That alone gives IG so much of an advantage when the Shy and Rookie are just consistently so good. What I want to talk about with IG, though, and where they struggled in LPL Summer particularly, is that despite having insanely strong solo lanes, there's question marks in the jungle and the bot lane for me. Ning and Leian have been trading off time, with Leian playing the first half of the group stage, Ning playing the second half. I will say I think Ning looked better. I think even though Ning is a quote-unquote coin flip jungler, I think Ning is just generally better than Leian and has the ability to influence the map in the way that Invictus needs. So I would expect IG to start Ning at least for the first game against Griffin, and then only bring in Leian as like an emergency pick or player for a strategy after having watched the games backstage. I also have question marks around the bot lane with Jackie Love and Baolan, because Jackie Love and Baolan, specifically Jackie Love, is notoriously very good. Jackie Love is a world-class AD carry, generally considered top 5 AD carry by a lot of the League of Legends community. But looking at this group stage, Jackie Love and Baolan were thoroughly unimpressive and not as influential as IG needed them to be. And I think that was the downfall for them against Damwon, where Nuclear and Barrel are considered the weakness for Damwon. But Canyon, of course, had an MVP performance in the group stage for Damwon, which we will get to later. But Canyon had an MVP performance, out-jungled Ning and Leian, despite the Shy and Rookie, the Shy specifically, beating Naguri, and then Rookie holding his own against Showmaker. IG could not get the advantage that they needed to through bot lane, and Jackie Love did not show up to be the carry that he needs to be through the late game for Invictus. So I think for Invictus to find success and to get back to that World Championship status, Jackie Love and Baolan needed to show up big time against Viper and Lehens in the quarterfinal. I think if they can do that, Invictus, like I said, has number 1 and 2 upside. The Shy and Rookie are already there. They do not need their solo lanes to improve. The Shy and Rookie are 2 of the best players in the entire world and can easily smack down any solo laners from any team, including Sword, Doran, or Chovy. So I will be very curious to see for IG, the key for them is their bot lane needs to step up, and Ning has to land on heads every game. Moving on to number 5 is, of course, the European second seed, the insane week 2 group stage run in Fnatic. Fnatic has been here every year almost. They've done it again and again and again. They have an insane record in day 2 of World's group stage, something like only 3 losses. They're incredibly good in week 2. And for Fnatic, what I'm looking at is if all 5 of their individual players can show up. Fnatic had a very, very bad week 1 where I would say none of their players really showed up to bat except for rookie Nemesis, and we'll get to Nemesis later. But on week 2, all 5 of their players showed up, played their game, played their style, were able to get out and affect the game the way that they wanted to, and looked incredibly good. Bwipo and Broxah in particular had a monstrous week 2. Bwipo was beating Khan in the top lane, beating Longjing in the top lane, beating Huni in the top lane, looking incredibly good while doing it. There was the one dive in the SKT game where Khan and Klid dove Bwipo under his first tier tower. He tried to turn it around, flash forward, started emoting in the middle of the lane after having not killed any of them, but forcing Khan's flash out and watching them run scared 1v2. Bwipo needs to play like that. Bwipo needs to play big, bold, and confident. And when he does that, he looks good. Broxa as well is a phenomenal early game jungler. And at his peak, I think is better than his counterpart Jankos in the LEC. With that being said, I think Broxa had pretty bad performances up until the SKT game in the second week of the group stage. But, of course, in the SKT and RNG game, Broxa pretty much single-handedly won both of those games for Fnatic with the barrel to kill the two SKT members in the botch dive mid lane that everyone looks at as the catalyst for Fnatic beating SKT. And then, of course, snowballing his bot lane ahead in the RNG game. Bwipo needs to play big. He needs to play confident, strong early game. Nemesis in the mid lane also has had... I would say Nemesis has had the best tournament for Fnatic in general. Even in the games where Fnatic lost, Nemesis was trying to carry his team 1v9, trying to put the team on his back, and the rookie has showed up big time for them. I think he has a massive draft advantage with all of his counter picks that he has. He's played a lot of champions very, very well, and he's looked incredibly good this tournament and will be a massive carry for Fnatic. But where I really want to put the spotlight on Fnatic, of course, is the man in the middle of the screen right now, Rekkles. Rekkles has so much experience. This is Rekkles's 5th World Championship. 6th World Championship, actually. And he has been to the World Final. He's been to the World Semifinals twice. He's been to quarterfinals many times. He always shows up on the international stage when he needs to most. And Rekkles showed up in week 2 when he looked absolutely phenomenal in the Xayah. He is, undeniably probably one of the best AD carries of all time. And Fnatic needs his confidence, needs his leadership. Rekkles needs to show up on AD carries. He needs to carry this team. Because at the end of the day, regardless of how good the rest of the members of Fnatic look, they always look as good as Rekkles. Take last year in 2018 summer, Rekkles on Janna, Rekkles on Karma. Everyone's flaming him. He looks terrible, right? He benches himself. They do all that craziness because Rekkles wasn't there. Rekkles wasn't showing up. When Rekkles shows up, when he's confident, the team is confident around him. He's the leader of that team. He needs to carry that team very hard. And then, of course, the last player to talk about is Hylissang. He's the catalyst for the team. He sets up all the plays. He may be a coin flip. He may be Hilly sick or Hilly shit. But at the end of the day, Fnatic will always set up all their plays around Hylissang. Hylissang will 9 times out of 10 take the right fight for you, gain advantages for you, and he needs to play like an animal in the quarterfinals against FunPlus Phoenix. So another thing that's important to talk about for Fnatic is that out of that roster, 4 of them have been to the World Finals out of the 5. Broxa, Bwipo, Rekkles, and Hylissang were all there last year. Only Nemesis has not been there. They have the experience. They know what it's like to play on a big stage. Rekkles and Broxa in particular have been on the team for now 3 years for Broxa, 6 years for Rekkles. They know what it's like. They know how to perform. They cannot let the pressure get to them, and I do not think it will. So what is the key in-game? What is the actual strategy for Fnatic? And, of course, it's the mid-game. Fnatic has been one of the best mid-game teams in the entire world. Second, maybe to G2, maybe to Griffin as well. But their mid-game has been astronomical. They exploited SKT's mid-game in the group stage match in week 2. They just crushed RNG in the early to mid-game. Never let RNG breathe in their week 2 game. And bought their ticket to the quarterfinals. So if Fnatic is going to beat FunPlus, who is also a strong mid-game team, they need to show up in the mid-game. They need to beat FPX at their own game. And they need to fight them. They need to play scrappy. They need to get mid-game advantages and close out the game. Even if they don't, I'd say Fnatic is still very, very good at team fighting around Rekkles and Nemesis. But they need to get those mid-game advantages. That is where they win games, is by getting ahead around 15 or 20 minutes. Now, the last thing for Fnatic, of course, is a lot of people have talked about their draft, where there's the Fnatic recipe, quote-unquote. And it's basically that Fnatic is very, very good at a few things. And when I say very, very good, they almost always win when they get a certain amount of champions. And a lot of people are saying, what happens when Fnatic does not get the Fnatic recipe? And while I also would wonder what that question would look like when it's answered, I want to talk about, is it even possible to deny Fnatic the Fnatic recipe? Because, yes, you can ban out certain champions and you can steal away certain champions. But if we look at the Fnatic recipe, we've got Gangplank for Bwipo, easily his best champion. They can put him on an island. He can look like a Chad on that. He can fend for himself, team fight incredibly well, be a massive late game threat, not have to play around it, focus entirely on the bot lane and the mid lane. And it can also affect the map. Bwipo has also been notoriously good at Aatrox domestically. I think Aatrox is part of the Fnatic recipe, a good brawler, scaling champion for Bwipo just to be on his own in the top lane and fight the enemy, because that's what Bwipo is good at the end of the day, is fighting. So, Gangplank and Aatrox, Fnatic recipe for Bwipo. Let's keep track here. That's 2 champions. Then we look at Broxah. Oh, he can only play early game junglers. We'll give him Lee Sin. We'll give him Elise. Those are Broxah's 2 best champions by far. I think he can play more, but those are his best. That's 4 champions. Nemesis. You're inting if you give him TF. His Veigar looked disgusting against SKT. A lot of people are saying you're inting if you give him Cassiopeia. That's 3 more champions. Now we're up to 7. Reckless. Can't give him Xayah. He's too good at Xayah. He looked absolutely amazing in all 3 games of Week 2 group stage on Xayah. Xayah is one of the most broken AD carries right now. A lot of people say he doesn't play Kai'Sa. So Xayah is a champion for Reckless. That's 8. Maybe even ban out his Tristana if you want to include his Tristana. World class, notoriously carried him, particularly in 2018. We'll put that at 9 champions. Then, of course, Hylissang. Can't give him Pyke. Hylissang is one of the best Pikes in the world. Hylissang played Leona in 2 of the games last week. I wouldn't say Hylissang's Leona is particularly amazing, but it was definitely part of the Fnatic recipe. It can start fights. I would assume that Hylissang has a Nautilus up his sleeve. We haven't seen it yet, but I would be very, very surprised if Nautilus was not in Hylissang's wheelhouse. But we'll put Pyke and Leona up there for the Fnatic recipe. That puts us at 10, 11 champions that Fnatic have as part of their quote-unquote Fnatic recipe. You get 5 bans, and you get 5 picks. So if you wanted to deny Fnatic the Fnatic recipe, you'd theoretically have to ban or steal away all of their champions, which of course is not realistic at all. And if we add to the red side drafting disadvantage this tournament of pretty much needing to ban Pantheon and most teams opting to ban Qiyana, that's 2 more champions that are being banned instead of the Fnatic recipe. So we'll put that number up to 12 or 13. It's simply not easy to deny Fnatic the Fnatic recipe, especially when a lot of teams value Kai'Sa so highly right now. If teams are wanting to ban Kai'Sa or pick Kai'Sa thinking Reckless won't play it, do you pick it away and take it for yourself and then give him the Xayah? Do you ban the Xayah, try to pick the Kai'Sa, force him onto Tristana? Do you pick his Xayah and bank on him not playing Kai'Sa and then he pulls out the Kai'Sa and destroys you? There's a lot of questions that have to be answered about, is it even possible to deny Fnatic their best champions? Because I think if we just look at a red side draft, I think you're obviously trolling if you don't ban Pantheon. You're trolling if you don't ban Pantheon. You're trolling if you don't ban Nemesis's TF. That gives you 1 more ban in the first phase of bans. 1 more champion to take out to try to deny what you think Fnatic's good at. Let's say it's the Gangplank. You don't let Fnatic have Gangplank. Then boom, Fnatic first pick Xayah, right? Or you don't let Reckless have the Xayah. Then they first pick Gangplank. They start getting those champions before you can deny them all, even if you try to steal away the picks. Let's say they first pick Gangplank and then you pick Xayah or Khan. Then you've got the Elise for Broxah or the Lee Sin for Broxah. You can get the Pyke on Hylissang. It's just not feasible to deny Fnatic all their champions. I think teams can try to do their best to, but I think the Fnatic recipe is so good because there's enough champions that work where Fnatic doesn't need to be flexible yet. And when they do, if they are pressured to be flexible, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But they haven't been pushed hard enough yet. Moving on to number 4, it is, of course, the Korean number 3 seed Damwon Gaming. Now, Damwon has looked incredibly good this tournament. This is where we start getting into the upper echelon of teams. I think Fnatic upwards all are capable of winning the World Championship. Even IG is capable of winning the World Championship if they played at their upsides. Just to clarify, I had IG power ranked coming into the group stage at number 9 and Fnatic at number 2. Now, Fnatic at number 2 was under the assumption that G2 was the number 1 team, which may or may not have changed. I will disclose that later, of course. But Damwon was power ranked at number 6. They were power ranked strongly, but I had a lot of question marks around them. I think a lot of those questions have been answered, and Damwon is now very, very solidly number 4 and a contender for this World Championship. Now, a lot of people talked about Damwon's solo lanes, of course, coming into the game. Nuggery and Showmaker. Now, I will say Showmaker has had overall a great tournament. He's had some very good games. He's looked pretty good. He's held his own against Rookie, particularly smashed Jensen in the Week 2 game. Rookie and Showmaker both smashed Jensen in their Week 2 games. Showmaker's had a good tournament. Now, I've got some question marks around Nuggery. Nuggery is known to be, of course, a very greedy player. He plays for late game. He does his Klepto Vlad. I'm sure he's got like a bank plank in there. Nuggery is known as he's so good in lane that he doesn't need to beat you in lane. He just gets more gold than you. He'll just get farm Klepto, that sort of thing. But having watched Damwon's first half of games, I'm not sure if Nuggery is actually in that upper echelon of top laners that everyone had him projected to be in the first bit of the tournament. Nuggery lost lane hard to Impact in the first game of the tournament, where Team Liquid beat Damwon, and then Nuggery also got beaten by the Shy badly, especially in the game where the Shy was playing Jace and Nuggery was on Vladimir. And now, of course, the Shy is arguably the best top laner in the world. I would not say Impact is the best, but Impact had a good tournament. He showed up, and I have concerns for Nuggery going up against top-tier top laners in this tournament. I think he's still very, very good, but he has yet to show me that he is actually a world-class top-tier top laner like everyone is saying. I think right now he's proven himself only to be middle of the pack. Now, where Nuggery's weakness has been, Canyon has been a strength. I mentioned it briefly earlier. Canyon had an MVP performance in the group stage. He is very clearly one of probably 3 front runners for MVP for World Championship if he continues this performance. He was absolutely monstrous in the early game, securing advantages for all of his lanes, shoring up disadvantages for Nuggery, getting advantages for Nuclear and Showmaker. He would get advantages for himself. He would starve out enemy junglers, put lanes behind, secure objectives, did everything a jungler needed to do. Canyon has been by far the best jungler at this tournament and is incredibly threatening to any of the junglers moving forward. And I think stacked up against Jankos in the quarterfinals, it'll be a very, very interesting matchup. So that, of course, leaves the bot lane for Damwon, where a lot of people had question marks moving into the tournament, and I think those question marks still remain. Now, a lot of analysts said that Damwon's bot lane was terrible. They were actually just trash. They were like, they're going to get smashed by Jackie Love and Balin. They're going to get smashed by Double F and Core JJ. I don't think that was the case. I think Nuclear and Barrel have obviously not been superstars this tournament. I don't think they are the carries for Damwon. I don't think you're ever going to put the game on Nuclear's shoulders if you're Damwon. But I don't think they have been a liability this tournament either. I think they've been a very middle-of-the-road bot lane as far as bot lanes go this tournament. So, now, part of that has been Canyon has put some of his resources bot side and secured early game advantages for Nuclear. But I don't want to call Nuclear and Barrel a liability for Damwon, and instead just say they're not a strength. So I would say that their bot lane may have actually overperformed expectations in this tournament, and if they can continue to hold their own against, say, Perks and Mickey, then Damwon will be incredibly dangerous if they can just continue to smash mid and jungle with Showmaker and Canyon. Number 3, this may shock some people who had SKT power ranked maybe at number 1, coming to the quarterfinals, maybe into the tournament. But SKT is the number 3 team coming into the quarterfinals for my power rankings of the 2019 World Championship. Now, Should make it very clear. SKT, I also had power ranked at number 3 coming into the tournament. And they're the only team that has not moved their place. I had G2 at number 1, Fnatic at number 2, assuming that G2 was the best team. Fnatic, I think, is very close to G2, as I covered briefly earlier, which put SKT solidly at number 3, power coming into the tournament, and I think they are still number 3. Now, this may already sound alarms for some people, being like, oh my god, SKT went 5-1 in the group of death, only dropping 1 game to Fnatic, who also escaped the group. They are not a weak team by any means, and I am here to say, yeah, they're not a weak team. But, well, we'll get into the but later. Let's talk about why SKT is so damn good and why they are once again looking for the 4th World Championship for Faker. And the answer is Clid and Faker. Faker, a lot of people, including myself, thought Faker did not have what it took anymore to be at the very top of competition. Faker, of course, was always very, very good, but a lot of people did not call Faker the best player in the world anymore. He may be the greatest of all time, but is he really the best? The answer is yes. Faker is absolutely ridiculous this tournament. He has won lanes. He has been a massive playmaker for SKT. He has set up big plays. His only bad game, of course, was on the Akali against Fnatic, where he got counterpicked very hard by Nemesis. He had that dive where Nemesis destroyed him under his turret, which may have shown some weakness for Faker, but other than that, Faker has shown very little weakness. He is an incredible leader for SKT, and he is supported by probably the second best jungler in the world right now in Clid. Clid is an absolute monster in the jungle, secures tons of advantages, honestly is as good as Canyon. All 3 Korean junglers at this tournament are absolute monsters, and Clid is no exception. But what, on top of individual talent, which of course SKT have in every lane, Khan can brawl with the best of any top laner. We've seen Khan destroy amazing top laners before. And of course, Teddy is one of the best AD carries in the world. There's question marks around Effort, but Effort has been okay this tournament. He's been an all-right support at worst. He's been fine. But what makes SKT so dangerous is, on top of having these insane players like Clid, like Faker, is that they're fundamentally the best team in the world. SKT very, very rarely makes the wrong decision. They are so good at getting advantages and then just destroying you. And that is what makes SKT so dangerous, is they play the map better than any other team. They shot call incredibly well. They take calculated risks. They'll always take the 60-40 that gets them a big advantage, and they know how to do it every single game. And that is what makes SKT so scary. Another thing is, I think SKT did not have to reveal very much in the group stage. They played incredibly standard in all 6 of their games. Even the game that they lost to Fnatic, they brought out the Alistar, which I did not agree with that pick. I think the Alistar was terrible in that game. It set up the one good early gank for First Blood on Hylissang, and that was the only good thing it did all game. But that aside, I don't think SKT really had to reveal anything crazy in the group stage to show that they're such a good team. And I think going to the quarterfinal, that is also really nerve-wracking, especially if you're a coach for, say, Splyce, where you're trying to come up with your pick ban strategy against SKT, and you're looking, and they've only played standard. So SKT, obviously, I'm sure, has strategies built up behind them that we haven't even seen yet. So why is SKT number 3 and not number 1 if they're so good at doing these things? And the thing that makes me fearful for SKT is 2 things. First, is the bot lane has not stood out at this World Championship. And I'm not trying to say that their bot lane has played bad. Like I said, I think Effort has been mediocre at best. And while I think Teddy has been an okay AD carry, I'd say he's been like upper mid pack of AD carries at this tournament. Probably, he's done his job. Teddy has done his job, but he has never won SKT the game at this tournament. Now, I think that obviously has the potential to change because Teddy was arguably one of the best AD carries in the world in the summer season. I still need to see if Teddy and Effort can keep up with the experience of other bot lanes on the world stage. But the biggest concern that I have for SKT is they have mid-game weaknesses, and this was exposed by Fnatic in Week 2. SKT made one bad decision in the game against Fnatic. They dove 4 at mid turret on Nemesis and Broxa. Nemesis is chunked out very low, no flash. Broxa has stopwatch. They go on Broxa instead of Nemesis. Nemesis did have flash, but Broxa has stopwatch. No stopwatch on Nemesis. And Nemesis is chunked out. They go instead on Broxa, who has stopwatch. Nemesis flashes out, gets a stun. Broxa stopwatches, survives all of the burst. Ults, has a very good ult. Fnatic gets 2 kills, one of which is a shutdown on Teddy. One mistake. Brings Fnatic back in the game, gives Fnatic the confidence, and then SKT gets drawn into the fights that Fnatic wants to force. They get drawn into playing Fnatic's game in the mid game, which is uncharacteristic of SKT. SKT is usually so good at making other teams play the game that they want to play, which up until that mid lane dive, they had done to Fnatic and done to every other team in Group C. But Fnatic draws in SKT, forces them to play the game that Fnatic wants to play, and Fnatic, being one of the best mid-game teams in the world, heavily exploits them with their well-drafted composition and wins the game. Now, that is a one-game sample size, but if we go back to the discussion we had earlier about RNG also being a weak mid-game team, it may start to make sense, where SKT has a solid early game, gets an advantage, doesn't need to force in the mid game against RNG, a team that wants to just scale and team fight with Uzi, and then SKT just out team fights and out macros RNG because they're just better than them. They don't need to play the mid game. Fnatic, the first time they play SKT, drafts Garen Yuumi, first game of the entire tournament. Garen Yuumi, also very, very weak in the mid game, doesn't turn on into the late mid game when you can start looking for picks. SKT, once again, wins very hard early, does not need to do anything in the mid game against Garen and Yuumi except for slowly press their advantage, and in the late game, destroys Fnatic in a very methodical win. Clutch. SKT get early advantages, actually get drawn in slightly to the Clutch fiesta, specifically in the second game against Clutch. Clutch picks Heimer. Rush 2 Barons. Now, of course, the second Baron went horribly wrong for Clutch, and although the game was well out of their hands before that point for the most part, was clearly out of their hands after that Baron, but the first Baron, Clutch secures it, right? SKT got drawn into the fiesta a little bit by Clutch. Clutch was able to make mid-game moves. And then SKT still brought it together, late game macro, won the game. I am concerned for SKT when they come up against a team that will heavily punish them in the mid game. And for that reason, I have them at number 3 and not number 1. Now, of course, moving on to number 2, we actually have G2 Esports. This may also come as a shock. As I previously stated, I had G2 power ranked at number 1 coming into the tournament. MSI champions, LEC kings, if we want to use old narratives. G2 has looked amazing this year. And they looked good in the group stage. I would say G2 has performed to expectations at the World Championship so far, which, of course, is why they're still power ranked at number 2 and a very big threat to win the tournament. So, here's the thing with G2. It's always just a question of are all 5 of G2's players going to show up on any given day. So far this tournament, Caps and Perks have respectively probably been one of the top 3 mid laners at the tournament, and then the best AD carry at the tournament, and also one of the contenders for MVP along with Canyon and the Shy for World's MVP right now. Maybe Faker as well. So, they have been absolutely amazing. Take the game against Cloud9. Perks, the first game against Cloud9, where Sneaky's on Cassiopeia, Perks on Xayah. Licorice and Blabber secure early advantages topside for Cloud9. Licorice gets fed, Blabber gets fed. It's starting to look not concerning for G2, but Cloud9 is definitely playing their game. But Perks just absolutely smashes along with Mickey X. The bot lane 2v2. Perks gets massively fed. Cap starts getting fed off of that bot lane advantage. G2 wins the game. First game against Griffin, when G2 speed runs Griffin. Caps and Perks win their lanes, push down, win the game very quickly. Game over. Griffin stood no chance. it's these players that have shown up so far at the tournament for G2. Now, where the concern lies for me for G2 is I have written in my notes here Caps and Perks versus the Goons, where I think Wunder in particular has underperformed at this tournament. Wunder at last year's World Championships probably solidified himself as a top 5 top laner in the world, having an absolutely monstrous performance at last year's World Championship in their semifinal run. This year, I think Wunder has been thoroughly mediocre, which is incredibly concerning for G2. He lost lane to Licorice. He did not beat Sword particularly hard either. He didn't really, that was a pretty even lane, and Sword is considered the weakness for Griffin. I think Wunder has been not bad at this tournament, but he's not been as good as he needed to. And then the MVP jungler, Jankos, has also not been stellar for G2. I think Jankos has played well, but not great, and that was their problem against Griffin and Cloud9. Blabber out-jungled Jankos heavily in that first Cloud9 game. Of course, as I already covered, G2 came back and won the game through their bot and mid. But Jankos and Wunder looked like a massive liability in that game. In both of the games against Griffin, their tiebreaker match in their second game, Jankos did not out-jungle Tarzan. And I think that the LEC MVP, the player that Vedius and Jat had in their top 20 lists of players. I'm not sure if Jat had Jankos up there or not, but Vedius had Jankos at number 2. He had him very, very highly ranked. Jankos needs to play like that guy because I think Jankos has been a decent jungler at this World Championship, but he's not been one of the best. Then Mickey has looked a little bit like Week 1 Hillisang, where he's inted a lot, and I think Mickey also has a super, super high ceiling, and G2 is known for their quote-unquote happy games, but I think Mickey has been less than stellar and has actually not been a very good support at all. I think he's been one of the weaker supports at the World Championship. I think G2, right now, Caps and Perks have looked so good where it hasn't mattered for G2, and G2 is still 5-2. But in order to win the World Championship, which is where G2 should have their sights set, all 5 players need to play to the caliber that we know they can play at. So that is why I still have G2 ranked at number 2, but they have a tall order against Damwon coming up in the quarterfinals where they need all 5 of their members. But, I mean, all 5 of their members are known to be incredibly good, and G2 is unbreakable mentally. They have incredible experience. Caps is a world finalist. This roster won MSI, pictured on the screen here. All 5 of them were the all-pro team for 2019 LEC Summer. The other 4 players, other than Caps, Mickey as well, but Wunder, Perks, and Jankos went to World semifinals last year after beating RNG. I mean, they have experience on their side. This team knows how to win. So I'm confident that G2 will be able to put up a very good fight against Damwon and potentially win that series. So, of course, that leaves number 1 team for this year's World's quarterfinals to be Griffin. There's nothing else to say. Griffin is just absolutely insane in all 5 roles. Sword and Doran is the biggest question mark for Griffin, but I would still say that they're incredibly good players. And then Tarzan, top 3 jungler. Chovy, top 3 mid laner. Viper, top 3 AD carry. Lehen's top 3 support, all in the world. I mean, it is undisputable. These players are ridiculously good. And it shows through that despite the internal issues that Griffin has had and that have been exposed to the community with the firing of CV Max and then Cho being let go and Cho actually being the problem at Griffin and all that internal drama, Griffin has still won games. They blew G2 away 2 games in a row to win Group A, who G2 were, for a lot of people, the pre-tournament favorite. I think Griffin is a very, very, very terrifying team going into the quarterfinals, and they look like the best team in the world with how they played against G2. If all 5 players show up and they have their just super fundamentally solid games, there really is nothing to say about Griffin other than they are so much better individually than every other team in the world. And that showed in the group stage. So, that is the power rankings. Now, quickly, we will go through the quarterfinals, starting with Damwon and G2 in the top left. Now, I talked a lot about these teams in in their power rankings about what I think. So basically, the path to victory for both teams. I think looking across the board, Wonder and Nuggery is a very even matchup. I think both of them have underperformed at this World Tournament, but both have the potential to be like top 3 top laners in their own right or top 5 top laners. So I'm not concerned for either of them, even if they both underperform or both perform to their caliber. They're both incredibly good. Canyon and Yankos, that is one of the key matchups for this. The other four matchups are honestly all key because Canyon and Yankos LEC MVP, Canyon Worlds MVP. If Canyon continues to have the performance he does and Yankos does not step it up from what he's done in the group stage, G2 is going to have a very bad time and Canyon will have his way with Yankos, and that is very concerning. Yankos needs to step up, shut down Canyon for G2 to win. Now, Caps against Showmaker will be an electrifying matchup. It's just like Caps versus Rookie last year, where Rookie got the better of Caps, unfortunately. But Caps versus Showmaker, same deal. 2 absolutely incredible mid laners will be duking it out. Very big catalyst for their teams. Now, the other place where all eyes should be on is the bot lane, where Perks, like I said, has also been a contender for World's MVP. Mickey X has been less than stellar, but will, I'm sure, be fine in this quarterfinal matchup, and Nuclear and Barrel are considered the weakness for Damwon Gaming. If Perks and Mickey are allowed to just win their 2v2 on their own, I think Damwon is going to be in a lot of trouble. Because with top and mid being somewhat even, I think the bot lane is very, very, very heavily favored towards G2. And if Yankos can get down there, influence the bot lane in G2's favor, get Perks ahead on a champion he likes to play, then Damwon will not have an answer on the top side of the map. And even though Canyon has been stellar, he absolutely has to shut down Perks and Caps. And Yankos, if he shows up, Damwon is in big trouble. I think prediction for this game, it's going to be a very, very close series, but I'm going to take G2 3-2. Next series will be Griffin versus Invictus, top right. This is another one that I think will be very, very, very close and will be an incredibly interesting one to watch. It's also the first quarterfinal matchup of the tournament, starting tomorrow morning, actually. So, as I already noted, Griffin looks like the best team in the world on a good day because they are just so good individually and they play well together as a team and they can beat anyone. Invictus also have undeniable individual talent in the Shy and Rookie. Now, where I'm looking at is bot lane, Viper and Lehens and Jackie Love Balan. Jackie Love Balan, of course, won the World Championship last year, and Jackie Love is notoriously good. Viper and Lehens have smashed LCK for a year and a half now and are a very, very dangerous bot lane. And I think that's where all eyes should be on. Is whichever bot lane gets the better of the other throughout the series will make it much easier for their team's jungler to take advantage, whether it's Tarzan getting out in the map or Ning getting out in the map. And that is what's important, is that bot lane advantage to unlock Tarzan and Ning. Because if Tarzan can get his laners ahead, so the Shy and Rookie, so that Sword/Doran and Chovy can get ahead of the Shy and Rookie, or Ning can get the Shy and Rookie ahead of Sword and Chovy, that will be what wins the game, because those 4 players with their junglers are so electrifying and all capable of carrying games that, like, whichever jungler can get activated and influence those lanes is what is going to swing that series in one team or another's favor. It should be noted that the Shy, having been one of the best top laners at the tournament so far, and Sword being maybe a question mark for Griffin, could be exploited if Ning and the Shy could team up, get Shy a lead, and put Sword down, while also not losing the bot lane 2v2. That is Invictus's path to victory. Griffin, of course, has maybe the best mid-jungle 2v2 in the entire world. So if Chovy and Tarzan can get ahead of Rookie and Ning and shut them down, it's going to be a very interesting series. And I think it'll change from game to game. I don't think every game, I don't think Griffin will 3-0 Invictus or Invictus will 3-0 Griffin through those strategies. I think it'll change on a game-to-game basis which lane gets the carry for the game and loses it for the other team. With that being said, I've already said that I think Griffin on paper is just a better team than Invictus, and even though Invictus has world championship upsides, I don't think those upsides are coming hard enough to beat Griffin, and I'm taking Griffin 3-1. Now, bottom left, SKT versus Splyce. This one is unfortunate for Splyce. I think regardless of which of these Pool 1 teams Splyce would have come up against, it would be a very tough matchup for them. And SKT just happens to be incredibly tough, and Splyce happens to not be incredibly tough, unfortunately. Splyce, while they are certainly a good team, as I said, and Kabe is a great AD carry, they individually just do not stack up to SK Telecom in any lane. I think that Vizicachi will struggle to find an advantage on Khan. Klid is one of the best junglers in the world, and Xerxes is not. Despite Humanoid having had a good tournament so far this year, he won't be able to find an advantage on the unkillable Demon King himself. Faker will have his way in that lane. Teddy and Effort will at worst go even with Kabe and Norscarin. And I think for that reason, SKT will just destroy Splyce. Also, Splyce and SKT play very similarly, where they have good early games, meh mid games, and then absolutely amazing macro and late games, except it's not absolutely amazing for Splyce. Splyce is just very good in the late game, and SKT is probably the best team in the world at playing the late game. And so for that reason, if Splyce just tries to play their style, I think SKT does it better. So unless Splyce can somehow pull a mid-game storm out of a hat, then SKT is going to have their way 3-0. Finally, we've got FPX and Fnatic, which, once again, very, very interesting quarterfinal. Both of them I had ranked a little bit lower on my power rankings, but I think they're both good teams. But I'm very, very concerned for Fun Plus stylistically, to use that buzzword. Both of these teams like to play through their mid game, and as I covered in my power rankings, I'm not sure what side of Fun Plus will show up, and that will heavily determine the series. If the side of Fun Plus that, survives lane, gets roaming around with Doinby Crisp, influences every lane, gets mid-game advantages, and just, pushes your crap in and takes away everything in the mid-game, that's the kind of Fun Plus that could beat Fnatic, because Fnatic, of course, wants to do something similar, but with a different style. They would rather do it through bot lane, bringing Broxa down with Gangplank Ultimate from Whippo, and crazy picks that can scale super well from Nemesis. So I think if Fun Plus can take advantage of Nemesis picking something like Veigar that maybe doesn't have the strongest lane and wants to scale, then Fun Plus Phoenix will have a good way to take control of the map. But if Fnatic gets on their comfort picks and gets to do what they want to do and just blow away LWX and Crisp, which I think is a mismatch. I think Reckless and Hylissang are stronger than LWX and Crisp on paper, and Broxa has had a better tournament so far than Tian. So if Tian once again struggles to influence the early game in the way that Broxa did in week 2, then Fnatic will just run over FPX. I think this series is a 3-0 either way. I think FPX either turns it on and just demolishes Fnatic, and Fnatic doesn't have an answer, or FPX looks the way they have the entire tournament, and Fnatic looks like week 2 Fnatic, and they just absolutely massacre them through every single lane with Broxa roaming around the map with Hylissang. So for that reason, I'm taking Fnatic 3-0. I think Fnatic still looks like overall the stronger team, and might have the chance, if it's not a 3-0, to be the one that wins. So say Fun Plus wins the first game, I think Fnatic has more of a chance to bounce back than Fun Plus does. So just to recap, number 8 in the power rankings, we'll go 8-1 one more time. We've got Splyce, then Fun Plus Phoenix, then Invictus at number 6, Fnatic number 5, Damwon number 4, SKT number 3, G2 number 2, and Griffin number 1. And I've got G2 3-2, Griffin 3-1, Splyce I'm sorry, SKT 3-0 and Fnatic 3-0 in the quarterfinals. That will conclude my analysis for this World's 2019 quarterfinals. I hope that anyone who listened enjoyed, found good things of what I had to say. If you disagreed with what I had to say, or even if you have something else to add to what I had to say, feel free to add it into the comments and tell me why I'm crazy or why you agree with what I said. If you have any suggestions for the video, feel free. I will hopefully be able to do a VOD review for one of the games for this quarterfinals coming in the next week, so stay tuned for that. I had a lot of fun recording this video, so see you guys. It's been Hawk.